Hello, I welcome you to another Tuesday teaching. My name is Josephine. My channel is Languages, an academy of knowledge economy. Tuesdays like this, I teach on a core course in philosophy of religion, theology, religion proper, and spiritual formation. And on Fridays, I talk on general issues that are beneficial, that are critical and very essential to our life. My name is Josephine, and I welcome you once again. And today I'm continuing on the metaphysical issues in philosophy of religion. Last Tuesday, I taught on being, what's being, and the two-word theories, theory A and B, and the philosophers' views and submissions on being. Today, I'm going to teach on space and time. What is space? What is time? Before I go into the proper teaching, let's join languages. I welcome you back. If you are joining me newly, my name is Josephine, and this channel is Languages. And here, I teach on philosophy of religion, all kinds of things that are related in philosophy, religion, theology, spiritual formation. I would love you to encourage me by subscribing, liking my page, and sharing with others. Just click on the subscription button down, and then you can go to my description box there where you find my email, and then you can respond or comment either directly at on the video itself, or you can send me an email for any questions on any topic or any course that I have taught here. This is a free teaching. I'm your digital professor, and this is Languages. And today, I'm continuing on metaphysical issues in philosophy of religion. I'm going to talk on what is space, what is time. And like I always say, please take your pen, take your paper, and jot notes. I'm going to share with you now my PowerPoint presentations. Metaphysical issues. This is the second aspect. The last one, metaphysical issues 1, was the one I addressed being and the two-word theories. Today I'm addressing what are space and time. If I could come to the edge of space, will I be able to stick my arm through it or not? I want us all to ponder on this question. Supposing I have the ability or the know-how, if I could come to the edge of space and stick my arm through it or not. If I could not, what would prevent me from doing it? If I could, have I come to the end of space? Archytas, a Pythagorean, raised this question in antiquity. His questions are profound, since viewing space as either finite or infinite is challenging. Equally problematic is the question of the nature of space. Is space something? Fixed space has something in it? But what is space? What is space? Space as a term refers to several meanings. Conceptual space is the space of geometry. It exists when a man thinks about it and ceases when he stops thinking. Perceptual space is related to our sense of touch, and sight. In one of my videos, I spoke on those 5 senses, and sense of touch and sense of sight are one of those ones that I spoke on one of the Friday tonics. And I went into details how it functions well and what it contains, what it entails us before transmitting code to our brain. You can check those videos to understand more about a sense of touch or a sense of sight. But what we are saying now, the perceptual space is related to our senses of touch and sight. A man sees a new car parked by the curb and then walks over and views it closely. In the process, he traverses space and experiences a three-dimensional perception of an object in space. Physical space is the space dealt with within astronomy and physics. Absolute space is a Newtonian concept that there are unmovable measuring points on the edge of the universe. The appearance and acceptance of Einstein's theory of relativity made absolute space an absolute idea. 3 different issues exist here for us to treat briefly. 3 different issues. And I'm going to go into them. What is space? Is space infinite? Or is curved space? First, what is space? Let's look at it. Early thinkers conceived of space in terms of something called ether, ether. Early thinkers conceived of space in terms of something called ether, a substance through which light travels, like a fish needs water to get from one part of the pond to another. Another analogy used for space was that of a container. It illustrates where you place a chair in a room, in that space by the window. On a larger scale, space is what holds the world. But in neither of these cases is space defined. That's just like describing. It's not defined, but using where the space is. When you place a chair in a room, when you illustrate on a larger scale, when you do other kind of thing, it's not defining actually what space is all about. It was difficult for early philosophers to conceive of space, or for how can one talk about a nothing. Even if you conceive of it as a material called ether, yet one never experienced space, either because they did not have the technology. Later, philosophers, beginning with Descartes, spoke of space and extension as identical. Objects could be measured for their extension. Remove the object from that particular space and the dimensions are still measurable there. Since a vacuum was impossible in their belief system, space ether was essential to give form or room to space. For Descartes, space was objective. Kant later regarded space as subjective. That is that space is a product of the mind rather than a result of experiencing space due to sensory perception. Space is imposed on objects. Perhaps, and we need to look at this very well, because when we talk about space, we need to really look at it very well. Look at it very well. Perhaps the problem of definition centers on trying to make space a thing things go in space, but space is not a thing. You can put a chair in space. You can create a dimension in space, but space is not a thing. Space is unique, one of kind. Then if space is not a thing, we must consider it a relationship between things. As such, it is depth, width, and length. Depth, width, and length. Second, is space finite or not? Is it finite or not? Philosophers of antiquity and those up to the 20th century held both views, that space is infinite and finite. The Greek atomists, Democritus and Lucretius, believed that space was infinite. And Gorgias, an ancient skeptic, was the first to argue that space was finite. Neither of these conceptions is imaginable. What would the boundaries of space be? Infinite space seems to be the easier of the two ideas, because we don't have to imagine the boundaries of space and what would be on the other side. Regarding current data, we can only talk about stellar bodies on the edge of a telescopic distance. The infinity of space has implications for the idea of curved space. Space is no longer conceived as a linear movement infinitely away from a point. Space is now described as curved. Albert Einstein contributed new ideas to space theory. In his theory of relativity, it removes the idea of infinite linear space from being meaningful. A misleading but useful analogy may help the novice to understand the idea of the curvature of space. The planet Earth does not move in a straight line. Its orbit circles around the sun. Why is there a circular orbit on the planet? The old answer is that the sun's gravitational pull keeps the planets in orbit. That's an old answer. However, the modern theory of Einstein that the planets circle because the phenomenon of gravity is merely the effect of the curvature of the four-dimensional space-time world. The other side of the question about time may be similarly outlined as in space. Let me go back so that we can actually appreciate what I said last before coming to this one. I said the whole answer is that the sun's gravitational pull keeps the planets in orbit. However, the modern theory of Einstein that the planets circle because the phenomenon of gravity is merely the effect of the curvature of the four-dimensional space-time world. You see, this is the reason why I share my PowerPoint presentation, and this is the main reason I ask you always to take a pen, to take a paper, and jot down notes, so that as I am presenting or teaching this thing, you can write down on the notes and research more to know more about what I'm saying. Okay, the other part of the question about time may be similarly outlined as in space. Conceptual times relate to the abstract items to study time and motion. That is, the time that exists only in mind. Perceptual time is the time experienced by a person as he encounters the events of the day one after the other. Physical time is the public measuring device reflected in the repetition of the Earth in orbit, which may be subdivided into months or days or the pendulum's movement, as proposed by Newton, who assumed that a universal time exists that was stable, much like absolute space. Absolute time is the mate of the absolute space. What is time then? What is time then? The early Greeks thought of time as motion. Aristotle wrote, and so motion too is continuous in the same manner as time. For either motion and time are the same, or time is an attribute of motion. As an example, time is the motion experienced in the movement of the sun from rising to sunset. On these grounds, time is also linked to matter. If there were no matter in motion, there would be no time. Hence, Plato and others view time as subordinate to insanity and only semi-real. Augustine, famous for the question, what is time, regarded time as extendedness, which is experienced in the mind. Later, Kant also regarded time as subjective, because the mind organizes experiences in sequential order. Contemporary philosophers tend to reject the idea that time is an entity that moves, or that it is through time viewed as an entity that one moves. Time is not like a river flowing from one point to another, which is why time is difficult to measure, even if it's regarded as accurate. Is there an absolute beginning for time? If one answers that time has always been, then there's no beginning point or a point of departure for measuring it. Hello. That is, time is not like a river flowing from one point to the other. So which is why time is difficult to measure. But if it is regarded as accurate, is there any absolute beginning point for time? Is there an absolute beginning? If one answers that time has always been, then there is no beginning point or a point of departure for measuring it. If one cannot speak of time as an entity or time flowing like an analogy of river, what is proposed to replace such descriptions? The answer is time is a way of describing before and after events concerning our speech. And the phrase token reflection is used to describe what is meant here. A token is a statement or utterance. Reflection refers to oneself or the statement that is made by one. Past or future is about the present statement. George will mow the lawn this afternoon refers to an event that will occur after a statement is made and is regarded as a future event. Thus, there is no entity called time. It is used to relate events in terms of their chronological order. When I say that I have lived for 6 years, a superficial time sequence is involved. Still, this resolves to periodic changing of the seasons, a series of events related to growing up, gathering older, and progressing to changes in my body. But time as a thing does not exist. The event experience approach to time concludes that I am dead when I no longer experience events. There's another dimension to time subjectivity. If I'm in a hurry and have to wait quite a while in the doctor's office, time appears to move slowly. Yeah, because I'm waiting, I'm eager to see my doctor and I'm waiting, and there is a queue. So the time will appear to move slowly when I keep looking at the watch, I keep on looking at the time. While if I'm enjoying an interesting movies, like series, like I always love to do on Netflix or HBO Max, time goes so rapidly that I hardly notice that the hour for the evening meal has even come, or there are times I need to sleep. Like last night, when I finally look at the time, I was watching a movie and I saw it was 2 p.m. Well, I should have slept earlier because time to me was so fast, I wasn't even looking at it. So there's yet another sense in which time is used. One may say, time is heavy on my arms and I would rather die. Or I have lived 75 years and it has been a delight. These cases, time is synonymous with life. My life has been, if somebody say now, oh, his or her life has been wretched by his events and his life has been filled, or I say, oh, my life has been filled with beautiful events. We can now consider an idea that has the mystery of space fiction. We get the fourth dimension when we combine space, length, height, width, and time. The added dimension can be seen in the following example. An army plane, lost in the fog, crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building at 35th Street, between 5th and 6th Avenue, New York City, at 9:30 a.m., July 28, 1945. This example gives a straightforward application of time to the other three dimensions, but there is more. Complicated application. It is used in physics and astronomy when travel is related to the speed of light. The physical theory of relativity suggests, without conclusive proof, that physical space and physical time have no separate and independent existences. Consider the following. If one could travel at 99% of the speed of light, your wristwatch, your heart, your lungs, your digestion, and your mental processes will be slowed down by a factor of 70,000, 18 years from the point of view of people left on earth. 18 years from the point of view of people left on earth, necessary to cover the distance from earth to Sirius and back to earth again, will seem to you as only a few hours, whereas those who are living on earth will have experienced 18 years. Starting from the earth, right after breakfast, you will feel ready for lunch when your ship lands on one of the Sirius planets. If you're in a hurry and start home right after lunch, you will probably be back on earth in time for dinner. But here you will get a big surprise. If you have forgotten the laws of relativity, you will find on arriving home that your friends and relatives have given you up as lost in the interstellar spaces and have eaten 6,570 dinners without you, because you were traveling at a speed close to that of light. 18 terrestrial years have appeared to you as one day. Is that, why some of us Christians says 1,000 years is even less than a day in the sight of God? Can you see now? If one could travel at a speed faster than the speed of light, it should theoretically turn back the clock. But the truth of the issue seems to be that Now, nothing material can travel with the speed of light. It must also be remembered that if truth relates to the verification, then all we have said about space-time is pure theory. Any rocket ship that could accelerate to the speed of light would need enormous amounts of fuel, not to mention fantastic technology to create such an engine. Although time, space, and space-time have interest for philosophers and scientists, they are not as close to human existence as our next metaphysical issue. That's the second series in metaphysical issues in philosophy, talking about space and time. Next Tuesday, I'll be talking on continuation of metaphysical issues, philosophy of religion, the third series. Thank you for joining me today. Do not forget to please subscribe, share, like my page, and please, I need and I want your comments, either to my email or past comments on the description box. You will find my emails there too to send to me. Have a wonderful week.